Unfortunately, can't recall those too clearly.
Do you remember telling Detective Carpenter that you only observed a driver in the vehicle?
Objection, leading witness.
Yeah,
Overruled, you may answer.
I can't be too sure.
Overruled, she may answer.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
I can't be too sure. Again, some of the conversations I might have had that day.
Do you remember what this vehicle looked like?
I do not.
Do you remember telling Detective Carpenter that it was a red truck?
I do not.
Okay. Can we please put up for everybody Exhibit 15 again?
Go ahead.
Can we zoom in on the intersection of East and Main?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Your testimony is that you were standing here on the northeast corner of Buckley and Main Street, is that right?
Correct.
Objection, already answered that, asked and answered.
Overruled, she may answer.
You said correct.
Correct.
And after your children walked by in the parade, you walked in this direction towards the intersection of White Rock and Main, is that correct?
Objection,
Correct.
leading and speculative.
It's overruled as to both. You may answer. If there is another objection, just
I'll
wait
pause.
until I rule on it.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay.
Correct, that was.
And then you crossed through the crosswalk on the north side of Main Street, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that when you saw this vehicle we've been talking about?
Yes.
So you were standing in the crosswalk.
Correct.
Do you remember a police officer being in that intersection?
I can't be too sure.
Okay. Was it clear to you that this was a parade route?
Yes, it was. Very clear.
Was it clear to you that traffic from White Rock should not have driven onto Main Street
Yes.
unless they were part of the parade?
Yes.
Did it appear to you as though the vehicle we've been talking about was part of the parade?
No.
How many children do you have, Miss Urel?
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled. You may answer.
Four children.
All four of your kids were marching in the parade that day, weren't they?
Yes.
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Sorry.
Your oldest daughter, Charlotte, she was 14 at the time?
Yes.
She was marching with the Extreme Dance Group as an alumni, wasn't she?
She was handing out candy.
Objection.
There was an objection. It's overruled.
I didn't even state why I was objecting, but okay. We still need a 15.
Yes, please. You see on that map the 5 points intersection?
Yes.
When you were standing in the crosswalk at White Rock in Maine, could you see the 5 points intersection?
I could not.
You didn't see your kids get hit, did you?
I did
Objection, leading.
not. Sorry.
Overruled.
Again, sorry.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
You didn't?
I did not.
Did you see them later that night?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I was only able to see two of my children that night.
When did you see the other two?
Days later, when I was able to leave Children's Hospital.
As their mother, you were directly involved in their medical care and the decisions that were made in that process in the days after the parade?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, their father and I.
Charlotte suffered a chipped vertebrae from being struck, didn't she?
She did.
Objection,
Sorry.
leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
She did.
Your daughter Alice, she was 10 at the time, wasn't she?
She was.
She suffered chipped front teeth, is that correct?
Yes.
And facial scarring
Yes.
and road rash
Yes.
and a broken fibula and tibia
Yes.
and broken metatarsal bones.
Yes.
She was observed in a concussion protocol, is that correct?
She was.
Your daughter Vivian, she was marching with the extreme dance group too, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
How old was she in November of 21?
She just turned 7.
Vivian suffered a severe concussion, didn't she?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
And road rash?
Extreme road rash.
And a lung contusion?
Yes.
And facial scarring?
Yes.
And your 7-year-old daughter Vivian suffered a broken tailbone, didn't she?
She did.
Your son Grayson, he was 8 on November 21st, 2021, is that correct?
That is
Objection
correct.
leading.
Overruled.
He was walking with the extreme dance group handing out candy, is that right?
He was.
He went to the hospital after the parade, didn't he?
Yes.
He suffered a compound fracture in his femur, is that correct?
An open compound fracture.
Meaning the bone came through the skin?
Yes.
Objection hearsay. I don't believe he's a doctor.
Overruled. The witness may answer based upon personal knowledge.
Was that a guess?
Yes.
A police officer saved Grayson's life by placing a tourniquet on that open leg wound, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Will you read the record?
No redirect.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may call your next witness, please.
So we gonna take down these exhibitors, you gonna stay up
Oh,
on there?
thank you. We'll take it down. Please call your next witness.
Just 1 second. So you one more person here, right?
It's my understanding, sir. Would that be correct, Attorney
Yes.
Upper?
Yes, she's in the courtroom, ready to go, Your Honor.
Defense calls Catrice. I don't know how to say the last name.
Can you give me the spelling that you have?
Babiasz.
I believe it's Babias. What's your last name?
Fabias.
Fabias. All right. Thank you. You are at the witness stand. Would you please raise your right hand? My clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, ma'am. Please have a seat. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record, and then spell each.
Catrice Babias, Katrice Babiazz.
Thank you. My apologies for mispronouncing that earlier. Go ahead, your witness.
Good afternoon, Miss Babias.
Correct.
I'm surprised I got it right. What do you do for a living?
I am a law enforcement dispatch supervisor.
And how long have you been doing that now?
I've been in law enforcement for 16 years.
The evening of November 21st, 2021, were you on duty that evening?
I was not.
What were you doing that evening?
I was attending the Waukesha Christmas Parade with my family.
And do you recall what time you arrived there with your family that evening?
I arrived to the parade shortly after it started, so it was right after 4 p.m.
And do you recall where you were positioned at with your family when you arrived at the parade that evening?
Yes.
And where were you positioned at?
I was towards the beginning of the parade. I was on Main Street, where it connects with White Rock Avenue.
Did anything catch your eye that evening when you were positioned watching the parade with your family?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw a red SUV coming from White Rock Avenue. The vehicle caught my attention because people started yelling, and the driver was honking the horn.
And do you recall, to the best of your knowledge, it's been a little bit, the driver of the vehicle you observed was honking his horn. Was it gesturing to people?
Yes.
And what do you see? What did you see the gesturing as?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
What was the gesturing?
What was the driver gesturing?
Yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So he was taking his hand and going like this, really rapidly, aggressively.
So, for the record, the witness had her right hand up above, probably above her, I wouldn't say at a 90-degree angle, but somewhere maybe at a 45-degree angle with her hand, waving back and forth multiple times in a rapid motion. Go ahead.
You yourself being in law enforcement and just based on what you were observing, the driver of the vehicle you observed was honking his horn and gesturing with this motion. Would you take that motion as trying to alert people to move out of the way? Grounds.
Sustained us to the form of the question. Please rephrase.
How did you yourself take that gesturing?
I took that gesturing as the driver was telling people to get out of his way.
Let me back up. Did the vehicle pass pretty close to where you were positioned?
Yes, the vehicle almost struck my daughter.
Do you recall seeing the driver?
I looked the driver right in the eyes.
And how did the driver look?
The driver looked like through me.
What do you mean through you? Describe what you mean by through you.
I feel that it is very hard to explain that look, but it was very frightening.
Do you recall what the driver was wearing?
The driver had a hoodie sweatshirt or sweatshirt on, and something on his head. I wasn't sure if it was the hood of the sweater or maybe a beanie hat. It was winter. I'm not 100% sure.
Were you able to see any hair?
I did see hair, yes.
How would you describe the hair?
The hair on the head was in front, like dreads down here from what I could see underneath the hood or the hat. And then there was facial hair, beard and mustache.
Did the vehicle...
Hold on, I just need to make a record of she was also using her hands, that's okay, to indicate at the neck, like under the chin, neck area, with her hands coming down a few inches to indicate what she was describing as hair being seen from the driver. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
When you observed the vehicle approaching, was the vehicle speeding?
When the vehicle was approaching from White Rock, the vehicle was not speeding at that time.
To the best of your knowledge, do you recall there being any barriers present where you were positioned at?
Yes.
Do you recall if the vehicle you observed had any tinted windows?
I do not recall.
Were you able to make out a license plate number of the vehicle, being that it had passed so closely by you?
No, once the vehicle continued past my position, I was more concerned about my children that were with me.
I'm assuming at some point you spoke with the law enforcement about what you saw that evening. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And do you recall what agency that was?
I do.
And what agency was that?
The FBI.
At what point were you not able to see the SUV once it passed you?
I lost sight of the SUV once it went into a bunch of people.
Do you recall what date it was that you spoke with the FBI agents on? Was that the same evening or a few days after?
It was not the same evening of the parade, but it was that week. It was within the next few days.
The day you spoke with FBI agents, do you recall stating the driver was wearing a red top that appeared to be made out of a sweatshirt-like material?
I don't recall exactly what was said to the agent, but I do remember the sweatshirt, yes.
A red sweatshirt?
It's possible.
Just a little bit ago, you said that, well, when asked the question of did you recall hair for the driver, you stated and made the gesture that the hair was in front. Do you recall saying that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall when speaking with FBI agents stating that the hair was pulled back?
The hair appeared to be like possibly in a ponytail, but it was so full that it was coming forward.
Do you recall, well, let me back up. Did you leave the parade at that point?
At what point?
After seeing the vehicle?
Yes.
Were you injured the evening of the incident?
Yes.
You were injured?
Yes, I was.
Any reason why that's not reported?
Probably because I didn't tell anyone else.
If you were injured, why not tell anyone?
Because I haven't wanted to talk about the traumatic experience that I went through for still reliving the weeks and days after the incident.
It doesn't make any sense. You talked to FBI agents a few days where you said you didn't, to be fair, you said you didn't know. You said it was that week, is what you said. The same week. You spoke with FBI agents, reported no injuries.
They didn't ask me about injuries.
Well, would it be fair to say that that kind of information would come up when talking to law enforcement, seeing as how you yourself work in law enforcement? It just seems odd, don't you think?
I do not. I was not physically injured.
Oh. but you didn't report this at any time whatsoever.
That's the answer to your objection.
Grounds.
Sustained. Already answered.
So did you speak to anyone about this in law enforcement?
Objection made.
Grounds.
Overruled. She may answer. He clarified law enforcement. Did she speak to anyone about this in law enforcement? I interpreted this as the injury.
Right.
So go ahead.
I feel like, no, I did not.
Did you file any claims related to the incident?
No, I did not.
So is today your first time bringing up your alleged injury?
No, it is not.
At some point, you were subpoenaed by the district attorney's office to testify here to testify in this trial. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall when you received that subpoena?
From the district attorney's office, it was in July.
And do you recall whom you spoke with about the information regarding the subpoena?
I contacted the victim witness advocate, Carrie Peterson.
You contacted the Ms. Peterson after receiving the subpoena?
Correct. The instructions told me to.
Okay. You ever spoke with anyone directly at the district attorney's office?
No. Correction. Yes, when I walked in today, I met there and let them know I was here, and then they walked me into a room, and I waited until I was called by you.
So before today, you had no interactions with anyone related to the district attorney's office besides the, I think you said, victim advocate?
So the victim advocates who have been in connection with and letting me know when to come and all of that.
Of the three district attorneys seated to my left at this table, had you had any interactions of any kind with any of those three district attorneys?
I have not.
And I believe, just for the record, when you asked that, Attorney Basie was just pointing to herself and the two people next to her, so it's clear, because since there's two tables.
What would be the reason for that?
since there's two tables of individuals. I think she wanted to make the witness aware. And I just wanted to point it out for the record since it happened.
Working in law enforcement for 16 years, I'm sure this isn't your first time being involved in a trial. Would that be fair to say?
I have not been in a trial for law enforcement. No, I have not.
You've never witnessed a trial, sat at a trial, been in a trial?
I have not.
Have you ever testified in any way before today?
Objection, all this.
Grounds?
Overruled, you may answer.
I have testified before, yes.
So it would be fair to say that you would have knowledge of where an alleged defendant and a district attorney would sit in a courtroom, correct?
I know where they're sitting, yes.
I want to back up a little bit to the observation of the vehicle the evening of November 21st, 2021. While you observed the vehicle approaching your position, did you see it strike anyone?
I did not see the vehicle strike anyone, no.
From your opinion, observing the vehicle approaching your position, did it appear that the vehicle attempted to strike anyone?
Yes,
And why would you come to that conclusion?
because I saw an officer have to jump out of the way in order for
When
the,
it was approaching,
when it was
question
a,
was when it was approaching.
I'm confused.
Hold on, everyone. The question was asked, this witness is going to be allowed to answer the question fully without interruption. Go ahead and answer the question.
Thank you. I misunderstood his question, I guess.
Answer the question
okay.
that as you understood it.
Yep, so I saw that an officer have to get out of the way, and he was attempting to stop Mr. Brooks from driving through the parade, and he was at the last minute jumped out of the way from the vehicle, otherwise he would have been struck.
You just used the name Mr. Brooks for the first time that you've been testifying. Would that be fair to say?
I don't understand your question.
You just used the name Mr. Brooks for the first time since you've been testifying. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
Why haven't you used that name before? You've been up there for quite some time.
I didn't need to.
So what changed for the last question that you needed to?
I don't understand your question.
You just stated that you didn't mention the name before because you didn't need to. So what about the last question that you answered made you feel like you needed to use the name for that question and no question before that?
I don't know.
Out of curiosity, how did you come to the knowledge of that name?
It was on the subpoena I received last week.
You just stated a little bit earlier in testimony that you received your subpoena in July. Now you said last week.
Those are both correct.
So you received 2 separate subpoenas?
Correct.
What was the difference between the 2?
One was from the district attorney's office and one was from you.
So the one that you received from the district attorney's office in July didn't have a case caption on it?
Okay, what's a case caption?
Just 1 second. 1 second, Your Honor, if
Your
I
Honor,
may
I just
have
want to
just
object to
one
this line
second.
of questioning. I really don't know what the relevance is for the purposes of this trial,
There was no objection at first.
but there is now.
I'm going to sustain the objection under 906-11, because I don't believe it advances.
I think
trial.
I think you know where I was getting at with the question.
Then you need to ask your question directly, sir. Go ahead, but I'm sustaining it as to the form of a question.
When you were subpoenaed in July by the district attorney's office, the subpoena didn't contain information to the case you were being subpoenaed for?
Objection to relevance.
Grounds?
Sustained, you don't have to answer that. I sustained the objection on those grounds. Ask the question I believe that you're trying to ask, not that one.
Was the name that you mentioned, Mr. Brooks, anywhere on the subpoena that you received from the district attorney's office in July?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds?
Sustained,
Grounds for the sustained. That was
not
the-
relevant.
What? Mind-boggling. Sir, in July, when you received your subpoena from the district attorney's office, were you even aware what you were being subpoenaed for?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds?
Sustained, not relevant.
She's testifying in the trial and it's not relevant that she got subpoenaed?
Mr. Brooks, she's here under your subpoena.
What?
You called her as a witness. It's
The
your
subpoena that the subpoena this is relevant because she
Mr.
was
Brooks,
already
under
subpoenaed.
906-11, please ask the witness a
This is
relevant and
mind-boggling.
probative question.
This is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Remind the jury that the statements of the parties or the attorneys are not evidence.
Gotta go through those spiel. So were you aware that it was a chance you would be possibly testifying in this trial?
Yes.
And did you know who the trial was for?
Objection,
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the
relevant.
sustained.
It's not relevant.
I've never heard of nobody testifying in a trial that they didn't know who the trial was for.
Mr.
think
Brooks,
I think
I'm
that's very
sustaining the
relevant.
objection under 906-11, and I'm asking you to move on.
Y'all is ridiculous, man. Seems to me like like a lot of your answers are coached. Is that fair to say?
No.
So the subpoena that you got last week, Is that how you learned the name that you used?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance for the same reason I argued before.
Grounds.
Asked and answered. She's indicated the answer already. 90611, sir. Next question.
The question
Different
was,
topic.
is that the first time that she saw the name?
It's not relevant.
That
Next
was not
question.
asked and answered. That was not asked nor answered.
Under 90611, please ask a question, sir.
Man, what is y'all people trying to pull up, man? This is ridiculous.
Mr. Brooks, if you don't ask another question that's relevant and probative under 90611, then I will turn the witness over to the state for their cross-examination.
And then I should be able to get redirect, right? Your Honor?
Ask a question, or I will declare the examination by you to be ended.
It's not an examination, it's direct.
It's a direct examination, sir. Under 90611, you are directed to ask a question, or I will
I
ask
heard,
the
I heard
state
you.
if they
I
have
heard
any
you, Your Honor.
questions.
I heard you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
You know who the plaintiff is in this matter?
Yes,
Who's the plaintiff?
the state of Wisconsin.
Is that an entity or a living human being?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Not relevant, sustained. Next question.
Have you ever had any interaction with the plaintiff?
Objection. Vague.
Sustained.
Vague.
As to the form of the
Have
question,
you ever had any interaction with the state of Wisconsin?
do not answer that question. Next question, sir. Under 90611.
Was there an objection or was that just a ruling? I'm not sure. You're both was talking at the same time.
Under 90611, I directed the witness not to answer that irrelevant question. Ask your next question, sir. Mr. Brooks, ask your next question.
I'm gonna get to it.
Thank you.
So when did you first report your alleged injury?
You do not have to answer that question. Next question, sir.
Grounds for
90611, sub 1, sub A, sub B, and sub C.
is that lawful law?
All right, you may sit down. Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Ma'am, that day on November 21st of last year, you were there with 2 kids?
I was, yes.
What were their ages on that date?
Objection.
3
relevancy.
and
Overruled, the witness may answer.
Of course it's gonna be overruled.
3 and 6.
And I don't know, Mr. Brooks can sit down. I'm kind of asking the questions right now.
Mr. Brooks, please sit down. Mr. Brooks, you're not asking the questions.
I'm not saying
I would
anything.
ask you to sit down, please. It is disrespectful to this witness and to the state and to the court.
No, it's not. Not doing anything wrong. I'm merely standing here.
Ma'am, when you were at the parade on November 21st of last year, approximately where were you watching the parade from?
Asked and answered objection.
Mr. Brooks, it's cross-examination. Just because you asked the question initially and she answered it does not mean the state doesn't get to follow up on it.
So the state can ask the same question I
The
asked.
state can ask their questions.
So how
Go
come when
ahead.
I did that, it was
The witness may
it was
answer.
sustained?
I was on Main Street, but right by where the intersection of White Rock, and I was in the roadway.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked and previously admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 15.
Go ahead.
And I'd ask that the screen be cleared. And ma'am, does this
Should we
show?
wait till it's in the jury
Oh,
box?
sorry.
I'm sorry. The jury would let me know when it's there. Thank you, it's there now. Go ahead.
Ma'am, do you see a purple line on that would indicate the parade route going from White Rock Avenue down Main Street?
Yes, I do.
And can you approximate where you and your kids were watching the parade?
Yes. Do you want?
I'm sorry, it's a touch screen. I keep forgetting to say that. Touch screens, just put a dot right where it is. Okay.
Maybe on the other side of that red line?
So, okay, can we clear the screen and maybe just put a dot? I think that, or a circle. I think a circle would be good. Okay, thank you. Would be fair to say is to your left would have been Pleasant Street?
That is correct.
Were there barricades blocking Pleasant Street?
There were
Objection, asked
ba-
and answered.
Overruled, the witness may answer.
There were barricades that were partially black. They were on Main Street, but partially blocking Pleasant Street as well.
Could a car have gone down Pleasant Street?
Yes.
Objection.
Okay.
Overruled, the
Hearsay.
witness may answer. It's not hearsay.
So when the red
Very
SUV
hearsay.
came down White Rock Avenue and was making its turn onto East Main Street, as you testified, it could have just gone straight onto Pleasant Street, correct?
That is
Objection.
correct.
That's hearsay. She's speaking as a
Hold
first
on.
eyewitness,
There's an
first-hand
objection.
eyewitness.
Mr. Brooks, your objection is noted. It's overruled. The witness
As
may
usual.
answer.
It's always overruled.
Go ahead, you may answer, ma'am.
Sorry, there's a lot of talking. Your question was, just to clarify, could the vehicle have gone straight onto Pleasant Street? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. And where you stated that you and your kids were partially in the roadway when the red SUV came through?
Yes, we were.
Objection. That's
And we're-
mischaracterization of what was testified to.
Overruled, the witness may answer. Go ahead.
Give me an answer.
Can you repeat it?
Sure. Were you and your kids all in the roadway when the red SUV went through?
Yes, we were.
Okay. You weren't part of the parade, correct?
We were not.
Okay. So were you standing with other people that were in the roadway?
Yes, we were.
And was one of your kids going to get candy when the red SUV came through?
Yes, my
Objection.
daughter.
Speaking as a first-hand eyewitness.
Because she is a first-hand eyewitness.
No, I'm talking about you.
The objection is noted. It's overruled. The question is proper, and the witness may answer.
Yes, my daughter was further in the roadway. We were all in the road, but she was further in the roadway, reaching to grab candy.
At any other time, you stated that this was towards the end of the parade. Is that correct?
Yeah, we saw Santa, and he's always like the end of the parade.
And had your daughter gone to get candy at other times?
The entire time.
Had she, during the time preceding the red SUV coming through, had she almost been struck by any other participants in the parade?
No, she was nowhere near like where the vehicles were driving through the parade. She was no.
So she's going out to get some candy that had been thrown, I assume, correct?
Yes.
And
Overruled. The witness's answer may stand.
you see this red SUV coming. Is it coming from your right or from your left?
The red SUV was coming from my right side, which was White Rock.
Okay. And how close did it come to your daughter?
It was, I wouldn't be able to give an accurate judgment, but it felt very, very close.
Had you not pulled your daughter away, would that car have hit your daughter?
Objection is speculative.
Overruled.
It's very possible.
So you say that you saw a police officer have some contact with the red SUV. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you describe that for the jury?
Well, there was a few times that police officers attempted to stop the red SUV. The first one would have been where we were on Main and White Rock. And then there were also other people trying to stop it too. And then again, as it drove, once it turned onto Main, the next road, I believe is Buckley. And there was another officer who tried to stop that red SUV again.
And which is the officer who had to step out of the way in order to not get hit by the red SUV?
What was the question?
Where was the officer located who had to step out of the way to avoid being struck by the red SUV?
I believe that was the officer around Buckley and Maine.
Okay. And ma'am, as the car passed your location, did it increase its speed?
Yes.
Do you know where in the roadway it traveled down?
Overruled, the witness may answer.
The direction of travel?
Where in the road? Was it on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, or in the middle?
It was all over the road.
You saw it all over the road?
Yes.
So going, and why don't you describe for the jury what you saw?
Driving the vehicle, once it turned onto Main, it drove side to side, and then I lost sight when there were through the people as it got down the hill.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Can you read the rest?
Yep. You said you observed multiple officers try to stop the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
You described one at, I think you said it was Buckley, right?
Yes.
Why didn't you report the other officers that you allegedly saw attempt to stop the vehicle?
I don't know what you're asking.
The report that the interview that was conducted with the FBI, that was who did your interview, correct?
Yes.
Why is it not in the report about the multiple officers that you say you saw attempted to stop the vehicle?
I don't know why it wasn't put in the report.
Do you recall if you told the FBI agents?
It's been a year. I believe so, but it's been a year.
When you say it's been a year, I'm assuming that means that there's some details you don't quite recall all the way. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So it would be fair to say that if there's details you don't recall, how can you recall the path of travel of the SUV that you claim you saw?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not understanding.
I think it was clear, but I'll ask again. You just acknowledged that there may be some details that you don't quite recall. So would it be fair to say that you don't quite recall the path of travel of the vehicle?
No, that is not correct.
Judging by what you just stated, wouldn't it be fair to say that that's a possibility?
No.
So you recall all the details of what you observed that evening, November 21st, 2021?
No.
So what other details do you not recall?
Objection. Your Honor, how does someone recall the details that they don't recall?
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Sustained
How
is
do
to
you
the
recall
form
some
of the
details, not
question.
others? Seems very funny. Seems almost as if you're recalling what you want to recall and purposely not recalling
Objection.
what you don't.
Badgering the witness.
Yes, sustained. You do not have to answer that, and you are warned. You may not badger or argue with this witness. Next question.
Badger or argue. What do you mean?
Next question.
What do you mean?
Don't intimidate the witness is what I mean.
How am I intimidating the witness?
Badgering the witness by eye rolling, by pursing your lips, by making facial movements regarding
That's
her
Does she
answers
feel intimidated?
is badgering the witness.
Are you kidding me?
Under 90611,
You really
please
can't- you
ask
really
your
can't
next
be serious.
question.
You can't be serious right now. Intimidating the witness. What have I done to intimidate the witness?
The last question was badgering, which is a form can
But you
be.
said
Mr. Brooks, I've made my ruling under 90611.
specifically said
Please ask
intimidate.
a question or
I'm trying
I
to
will
merely-
stop the
How
questioning.
did I intimidate?
Under 90611, sub 1, sub A, sub B, and sub C, ask your next question
Man,
or the questioning of this
How are
witness
you
will
even a
end.
judge? How are you even a judge?
All right, you may step down, ma'am. Thank you.
How are you even a judge? Come on, man. This must be all about the 62Q trust, right? That you want to be the beneficiary of?
I'm going to give the jury their closing instruction. We are done with testimony for today. Please do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented. And I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. This order is not limited to face-to-face conversations. It also extends to all forms of electronic communications. Do not use any electronic devices such as a mobile phone or computer, text or instant messaging or social networking sites to send or receive any information about this case or your experience as a juror. If you come in contact with the parties, lawyers, interpreters, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, the parties, lawyers, interpreters, and witnesses will not contact or speak with the jurors. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene either in person or by any electronic means. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on radio, television, over the internet, or any other electronic application or tool about this trial. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, electronic applications, social media, the internet, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in this case. Any information you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device, including personal wearable electronics applications or tools with communication capabilities, to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or off the computer. Do not permit anyone to communicate with you about this matter, either in person, electronically, or by any other means. If anyone does so, despite you telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After this trial is completed, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. I'll have the jurors report on Monday at 9 a.m. Thank you. You are excused. Please rise for the jury.
Call yourself a judge as much as bias you put up in here. Don't even tell the jury the truth. Got no integrity whatsoever. None. None.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I would like an update on whether Mr. Brooks filled out a subpoena for Dawn Woods and provided that to the state. Has that been done?
No, we haven't received anything, Your Honor, and obviously she can appear here voluntarily if Mr. Brooks wants to arrange that. I don't believe a subpoena is necessary. We had subpoenaed her, and she was under state subpoena. So I know that at least some point she had notice, but our position would be, Your Honor, that we will not be responsible in any fashion for producing Miss Woods. Mr. Brooks talks to her on a daily basis. If he wants her here, he can produce her on Monday.
Yeah, they ain't got to worry about that.
So I just wanted to know, because I know a subpoena form was filled out.
If
So
I want her to be here, she gonna be here.
I agree with
So
the state that
just know that.
She could certainly appear.
It ain't even got to be no arrangement. All I got to say is come. She gonna come. That simple.
Mr. Brooks, do you intend to call her as a witness? Because I'm directing you
We
to
said-
have her
we
here
said
at
all
9
that-
a.m.
We said all that at the beginning, man. Like, I don't even want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of some
I need to make a record too.
You don't
When
need
am
to-
I going to get the chance to do that?
All right, I need to make a record. He's being removed to the other courtroom. He is yelling at me. He's not going to let me make a statement or make the record that I need to make.
I'm finna
He
leave
hasn't
anyway,
sat
so
down
what do it
for
matter?
the
You can
better
hold me
part
in
of 2
contempt
hours.
all you want. You can hold me in contempt all you want.
I'm not
All
holding
you
you in
gotta do is tell me
contempt.
if it's criminal or civil, so I can hit
All
you
right,
with you.
I need to
with
clear
what you
the
know is
courtroom because
coming.
I do need
I'ma
to
give
make.
you what you know is coming.
I need him to go to the
If
other
it's civil-
courtroom because I do need to put some things
it's
on the
civil,
record. The record should
Where's the
reflect
contract between you and I?
that Mr. Brooks
If it's
is
criminal,
yelling at me.
what is the crime?
He is.
Who makes the claim? And what
He
is
is.
the...
I will make the record when we get back. I will step off, but Mr. Brooks, you're being
It ain't
taken
no
to the next
Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks. Don't try to address me
Thank
like
you.
that, like we cool. You don't have no integrity. How can you even call yourself a judge? Making tacit agreements, being biased, judicial misconduct, trying to steal somebody's